everyone, and thank you for joining us for the 20th Annual Bobby Bonds Memorial Symposium. My name is Naisha Brown, and I will be your host for this conversation. We have some great panelists lined up, so let's get started with a welcome from Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan.
Greetings, Metropolitan Junior Baseball League, and welcome to Washington. I'm back in the district meeting with constituents, but wanted to congratulate you on hosting your 33rd annual championships competition and your nearly 60 years of service to inner city youth throughout America. Born out of segregation in 1966, shortly after the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Dr. William M.T. Forrester began your organization's invaluable work in Richmond, Virginia, with the purpose of supporting historically disadvantaged youth populations in urban centers. As the first Black woman to represent Virginia in Congress and a mother to 2 children, I'm grateful for your commitment to providing a platform to socially and economically disadvantaged youth through educational, athletic, and cultural enrichment programs that uplift the legacies of the Black community. Too often, low-income inner-city youth do not have access to athletics or extracurricular activities. Studies consistently show that youth who play sports have higher levels of self-esteem, self-efficacy, and social support, and lower levels of depression, loneliness, self-derogation, and fatalism. As we all know, the coronavirus pandemic posed a serious social, psychological, and emotional challenge for our children during critically formative years, upending their lives and limiting opportunities for sports, extracurriculars, and social gatherings. Black and Hispanic youth and youth in urban areas face the steepest decline in athletic participation. Even then, the Metropolitan Junior Baseball League push to provide inner-city youth the opportunity to continue making connections, building community, and playing ball through its partnership and coordination with the MLB and reviving baseball in inner cities. As a mother to a teenager and a 9-year-old, I thank you for your incredible commitment to the next generation. I know firsthand the immense benefits athletics can have on children. They cultivate social development, foster deep, meaningful friendships between teammates and coaches, provide opportunities for physical exercise and fun, and teach children valuable lessons like the importance of hard work, camaraderie, leadership, accepting and overcoming failure, and resilience. I'll leave you with a quote from Jackie Robinson, the first Black man to play in the major leagues. "A life is not important except in the impact it has on others." Thank you for making such an incredible impact on our next generation. I hope you have a fun-filled championship competition, and I look forward to the next time I can join you in person.
So thank you for those words from our Congresswoman. And now let's introduce our panelists for this afternoon. Our first panelist is Paxton K. Baker. He is an American businessman, entrepreneur, and philanthropist who has served in the entertainment, music, sports, and production industry for over 30 years. He is also a minority owner of the Washington Nationals.
Thank you, Nation. Appreciate it. Glad to be here this afternoon with everybody.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have Jarvis Stewart. Mr. Stewart is the chairman and CEO of Highland Poe, a holding company based out of Washington, D.C. He is also a founding partner of the Washington Nationals.
Thank you again. Glad to be here.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have Ricky Clemens, a Howard University professor and former Major League Baseball VP for the National Baseball League.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Glad
being
to be
here.
here.
For us. Next, we have David James, VP of Baseball and Softball Development for the Major League Baseball.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Glad to be here.
And finally, on the phone, we have Dusty Baker. Mr. Baker played in the major leagues for 19 seasons, and he won a World Series title as a player and manager. So thank you for being here, Mr. Baker. Maybe we can transition while we're trying to get Mr. Baker on the line. Numerous MLB stars have supported this initiative, including the late MLB Hall of Famer Joe Morgan, and now we have a brief video from Joe Morgan to further highlight that point.
Welcome to the 3rd Annual Bobby Bonds Memorial Symposium and the 16th Annual Metropolitan Junior Baseball League Intercity Classic. These programs are designed to enhance the survival of baseball programs at historically black colleges and universities. I am very passionate about sustaining the legacy of baseball in the black community. I heartily support the efforts of the Metropolitan Junior Baseball League in restoring African American participation in baseball. Bobby Bonds was a personal friend of mine, and I am pleased that his name is associated with this program. We have the opportunity to help our young people by supporting these programs, which afford them the chance to receive a college education through the game of baseball. Broadcasting commitments prevent me from joining you this weekend. However, my commitment to our youth, education, and the game of baseball is stronger than ever. I urge you to follow me in working with the Metropolitan Junior Baseball League.
Okay,
Mr. Baker.
Yes.
Okay, so can you hear me okay?
Yeah, now I can hear you now. Before it was jumbled.
Okay, so we have Mr. Baker on the phone and also on the screen here.
Yep.
We're getting a little feedback. So the first question I have for you, Mr. Baker, is what are some of the
life lessons you learned from playing and managing the game of baseball?
And why do you think
it's important that our youth have a chance to play the game?
Well, some of the lessons that I've learned are perseverance, determination, patience, also, camaraderie, teamwork, and learning to get along with others and to coexist in the workplace, because it's going to be like once you get out into the world, that's what it's like. And also to learn to get along with different races, different ethnic groups, different religious groups. And, baseball taught me a lot. And it taught me really about myself and about other people at the same time.
Thank you for that very thoughtful answer.
When preparing to coach in the 2022 World Series, you said, I'm ashamed of the game. This was because no African American players were on either team's roster. You believe your comments have made MLB proactive in attracting black baseball players to the game? And has the MLB commissioner asked for your advice and assistance on this issue?
Well, they asked me for my assistance on this issue, many years prior to me making that comment. The thing about it is, I don't know if my comments helped it or not, because I'd said similar things for the past, every year, Jackie Robinson Day, or every year, Black American History Month. I've said the same thing for 40 years. and then it's kind of swept under the rug until the next, February or April or May. And so I would hope that, some of my comments, but it takes more than me, because even though I've been around a long time, it takes a group of people, especially young people, to say things. And so, things appear to be getting better because, the draft's better. They're still not drafting many kids out of the HBCUs. And, the top kids are getting drafted, but, hopefully, things will get better soon in baseball, because when I was coming up, man, there were black stars everywhere. And when I was playing, there were black stars everywhere. And at the World Series, the reason I said what I said is because, I was there and the numbers, the numbers were low. And so hopefully, like I said, we'll see in the near future.
Thank you. And I have one final question for you. Sorry, we're getting some feedback.
Yep.
After being a manager for 26 years in the big leagues, did you see yourself, these young players having the same kind of enthusiasm and compassion for the game that you and Bobby Bonds and other players had during your time?
Yeah, I mean, I see that same enthusiasm. Because people people don't change that much. And everybody's looking for change, but you must love the game or love what you're doing in order to have that enthusiasm. I mean, that's where it starts. Nobody can give that to you. That comes from deep inside. But the key is that you have to feel that nobody's going to give you anything. I mean, you're going to have to persevere. You're going to have to have character, and you got to want it, and you got to get some breaks along the way in order. But you have to recognize when you're getting a break. See, a lot of times, you're not prepared for that break, and most of the time in life, you're only going to get one, definitely two, maybe three, during that whole time. So, the main thing is, you got to have faith in yourself, faith in a higher power, which God has put me in this position over and over and over. So, the same enthusiasm is here, but the thing about it is, it's a little different now with the kids, because sometimes, back in our day, somebody gave you a negative comment, we would tell them, "Hey, man, I'll show you," and try to show them. But now, if you give somebody a negative comment, then a lot of times they'll sit down on you. So, you really got to have character and perseverance.
Thank you. Those are some really wise words to live by, and we have a lot of young people in the room, so hopefully they take heed. Mr. Baker, thank you so much for your time, and we're going to let you go now. I know that I want to thank everybody for working through our technical issues. Hopefully we won't have any more after this.
Well, thank you. And hey, good luck to all the young people out there, because not long ago, I'm 75, not long ago, I was one of you, and time goes by very quickly. So take advantage of every moment in your life, and just realize that, hey, man, every day is a possibility of the day you might get your break. All right. Good luck.
Thank you. All right, thank you again, everyone, and our panelists for working through our technical issues. This should be smooth sailing from here on out. So I'm going to transition into our first question, and this is for all the panelists that are interested in answering. It has been said that baseball was always more than just a game for us, and that the national pastime has been a measuring stick for Black progress. Do you believe this is true?
I think at one point it was. I wouldn't so much say it is now. As far as sports are concerned, baseball used to be kind of much more prevalent in the African American community than it is now. I think now it would certainly be basketball probably leading the way, and maybe football second. And I would say basketball first and foremost, because for the Players Association, the last 4 or 5 presidents have been African American of the Players Association. And you've also had African Americans running the, not just in this case here, C.J. McCollum, but the head of the actually labor union itself has been African American leaders there for a while. Basketball is 87% African American, somewhere thereabouts. And as I mentioned, the last 2 heads have been sisters, Tamika Tremiglio, and prior to that, Michelle Roberts. And then currently it's Andre Iguodala. So the leadership has been there for a long time. And then with that is something unique in basketball, is that the head of the unions and the commissioner of basketball, Adam Silver, actually get along quite well with each other, and it's a very encouraging environment. I wish that other sports would kind of follow suit with that, by way of the players and ownership not necessarily like kind of at a jagged edge with each other, but actually interested in cooperation by way of growing the game. And then, of course, baseball is dependent upon having a diamond, and a lot more apparatus goes into being able to play the game of baseball than it is with basketball, where you're pretty much, baseball is a little more akin to football by way of needing much more organization and infrastructure around it. Basketball is less so, very very much so. And basketball is more of an individual sport as well, of you can go out and practice thousands of reps by yourself, a little bit harder in baseball because you have somebody to throw you the ball and kind of work with it. So it's a little bit different of a sport. I think at one point when Jackie Robinson integrated the sport overall, that would have been more of the case. But now it's a little bit different. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree. Obviously, from a baseball perspective, it's access to the equipment, access to the fields, and having the time to go out and having someone show you. Baseball is a hard sport at its core. You're going to fail more than you succeed. I think we've taken an approach to make sure that there's other ways to play, a little bit more recreational, so that everyone has some positive opportunities through it, and ultimately evolve into, the traditional way to play. But there's a lot of things that baseball's doing, and specifically the clubs play a big role in this, in making sure that there's opportunities and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would add, Paxton, who is a longtime friend and brother in many ways, raised a really good point about sort of the history of black people and African Americans playing baseball. I mean, if you think about the Negro Leagues and how once that sort of began to evolve, and a lot of the fields, the diamonds were required space, required land. Where were most black people in, before integration was in the South. So it was only natural for us to play a game like baseball and be engaged in a game like baseball. And most of the games, or all the games, prior to the sort of invention of television, you would listen to them. My grandfather would tell me, and my dad would tell me about listening to the game on the radio. So that was our way of really sort of elevating and learning more about Jackie Robinson and so many, Satchel Paige and so many others. So I think media, which hopefully we're going to get to, and which Paxton is one of the best in this space, media has played a significant role in that space. The other thing I would say, culturally, the way that our appetite for engagement, our appetite for fame and fortune, not bad or indifferent, not bad or passing a judgment. It's just the excitement that we have. Basketball has always moved because it's a faster sport. It's it's dunks, it's 3-point shooting, it's all of the above, right? And the same thing with football. It just sort of holds our attention a lot more because of the excitement of basketball and football. Where baseball is really a little bit more of a finesse sport, right? It takes a great deal of skill to see a fastball coming toward you at 100 and some odd miles an hour, and you got to time it just right. And so it takes a little bit more patience to be able to appreciate the eloquence of the game. So while it has been historically a great pastime of ours, and it has definitely elevated many of our forefathers to do great work and to sort of support our community, I think there's a little evolution there, but I don't think it's one we should forget. It's one we should continue to teach young people as we continue to grow.
Well, let me say this. I think that if baseball is a measurement of black progress, we would be in trouble, believe me, because baseball has yet to catch up with what black involvement in baseball really meant and exactly what we have brought to this game. When we think about baseball in progress, yes, you talk about Jackie Robinson and breaking the color barrier, but there would have been no Jackie Robinson if Fleet Walker had continued to play back in the early 1900s. When they started to just exclude black players when it became a business like what it is today. Another thing is they took our players, but they never took the organization. We had general managers, we had scouts, we had coaches. I mean, who do you think coached all those Hall of Fame players that went into the Baseball Hall of Fame once they entered the Major League Baseball? So they never took the business part of baseball, only took the talent. So if we had to measure black progress by baseball, we would still be back in the 1800s because it took baseball a long time to catch up with us. We were the ones that started night baseball, basically put running into the game, basically a lot of things that we brought to the game that we never got credit for. So I think that baseball still owes Black America a debt in terms of what it has brought to the game once it came into being that blacks were able to play on the major league level. And once we played on the major league level, I think we excel. We were the MVPs, maybe the 5-6 years in a row after that, basically batting champions, RBI champions, and yet we didn't get that head start by playing before 1947 in the major leagues. So, no, baseball and black progress does not go together.
I'd jump in and say, obviously, the industry is looking to right some of those wrongs. Most recently, obviously, the commissioner put in all of the stats from the Negro League players. I think so that's a positive step to recognize, all of the things that you talked about. Also, I think we're doing a really good job of reaching out to this younger generation and providing the game to them where they are at. I don't know, we have a lot of young folks here. I don't know how many of you play MLB The Show and are playing with your favorite players and things like that. So there is efforts underway to make sure that they're doing all of the necessary outreach to African American communities, and probably more importantly, doing more outreach to the younger generation because they consume the sport different than we have before. One of the things that happens is any kids who participate in any sort of Major League Baseball or minor league baseball program, they get MLB TV for free for the season. And the analytics tells us that when Aaron Judge is up to bat and the bases are loaded, you'll see a spike. With the kids that are watching it, they're going to not watch a whole 9-inning game, but if Aaron Judge is up to bat and has bases loaded, they will turn in that way. So I think we know there's more work to do, but we're making sure that everyone has access to the sport in some way or another.
Thank you. So next I have a few targeted questions for each of the panelists. We're going to start with a question for David James. With all of the programs that MLB offers to our youth, such as RBI, Play Ball, Fun at Bat, and the Hank Aaron Invitational, which of MLB's programs do you think has the greatest potential to reconnect the game of baseball to the African American community, and why?
Specific to the African American community, quite honestly, I think it's everything. The thing that we battle against right now is the travel ball phenomenon. Everybody wants to play a tournament, but if you look at our sport, bat and ball sport, and this applies not only to baseball, but for softball, if you are in high school or you're in junior high, or when you get to college or you get to the minor league stage or the major league play, everything is predicated on a regular season. You have good games, you have bad games, but you hone your skills. And we're against travel ball, but we want more kids and more opportunities to play the entire game. It's not just, hey, we're just going to play every weekend for a tournament. We have to pay so much money to participate, but just enjoy the game. I think there's a lot of pressure on kids and families and communities that they feel that they constantly have to compete and get to that next level, when in fact the game itself takes a period of time to play and to hone your skills.
Thank you. Anyone else care to comment on that before we move on?
Well, I would add that the baseball academies, which was originally founded by a brother named Jimmy Lee Solomon, who was MLB head of operations at one point, it started in Compton, California. It was the first Major League Baseball academy. They've now spread across the country. I know there's one in Philadelphia, one in Houston, and Washington, D.C. Ours is pretty much, it teaches life skills and life lessons, and baseball is a part of the experience, but the goal of the academy is to really integrate itself in a community and teach young people everything from nutrition to some of the things that Dusty talked about in the beginning, his opening remarks on teamwork, camaraderie, friendship, the importance of being able to get along with each other, the importance of democracy. And that is ultimately the goal of the academies, which is a little more of a long-term mission and I think more meaningful than just trying to put more African-American kids on the field, which is important. But as with most sports, those who make it to the finals are very much the minority. And there's a lot more jobs and things around a game and things around life which are more important, of which the academies teach those skills, and that's the long-term mission of it.
Let me just add, Paxton's being a little modest. He's the chair of the board of the academy here in
The founding partners.
Founding Partners Group. And it was I guess it was '07, when we brought the Montreal Expos from Montreal to Washington. It was one of the things that was really important that we wanted to do in the DC community, and it was, I think, in many ways, it was the founding partners, which Paxton, I have since exited the group, and Paxton is still part of it. But it was one of the things that was most important. We didn't want to just bring baseball to Washington. We knew at the time Wards 7 and 8 here in Washington really needed an economic boost, an economic sort of injection, and the idea of having it, bringing the team to Washington, but also demonstrating a level of commitment beyond just the game of baseball, as Paxton just mentioned, because baseball is a fantastic sport. I played it when I was young, just like these young faces that I'm looking at here. But the lessons that it taught me were superseded me playing, first base and center field as I did. So it's one of the things that I'm most proud of, and I'm glad to see that Paxton and the other founding partners are continuing to move in that direction and that tradition. So I applaud you, my brother.
Thank you all. Okay, we have another question for Ricky Clemens. What are your thoughts about the potential benefits of MLB having their major and minor league franchises partner with HBCUs and other colleges to have students go into the Black community and become tutors, mentors, and baseball coaches?
Wow, that's a big question there. One thing is it's going to be hard for professional teams to actually start minor league teams at college level. NCAA will not allow that for sure. So that would be a problem. But I think that the major leagues, certainly like Major League Baseball, has basically supported other avenues, like ones we just mentioned, like the Hank Aaron Classic, the RBI program. But for them to actually partner with a college could be an issue. I mean, that could be an issue that even though baseball enjoys antitrust systems, they can almost do anything they would like. But then again, I think that would be an issue to have a academy. But I think what baseball could do, though, is to give more exposure to Black kids playing baseball. I think that the games in which we have here at the Metropolitan Baseball League could be broadcast on the Baseball Network so that kids can see more kids playing. We can certainly start to, I'm a big tickler for history. I'm a historian, Negro League historian. I think if kids knew more about the history of Major League Baseball, of the great players and the great teams, and Griffith Field and the Washington Senators, and certainly the great players that play that I know about and adore, I think that would also get them excited about baseball. So I would say that would be the only way I would suggest to kind of get involved with it.
Thank you. Anyone else want to comment on that?
And some of those initiatives are underway. Obviously, what was formerly Dodgertown is now the Jackie Robinson Training Complex in Vero Beach, Florida. There are probably about 14 development events that take place there throughout the year for both baseball, softball, girls baseball is really trending upwards. One of the neat things about the Jackie Robinson Training Complex, Tony Regans, who runs our department, he's Chief Baseball Operating Officer for Major League Baseball. Given that he was a general manager for the Angels, won a World Series, he's been able to pull in a lot of folks that have a lot of history in the game. And so specifically Jerry Manuel and Mike Sosha that Tony spent a lot of time with on the field. And they started the process in the naming of the Jackie Robinson Training Complex, that for all of the kids that participate there, the mantra is that you do things the Robinson way, because that is the location where Jackie Robinson played. That's where he started his career. And it's been quite interesting to see the kids buy into that and understand the commitment that they need to make to participate and to, aspire to get to different levels with the program. So there is a recognition of the history of the game, and especially the African-American history of the game. And it's really neat to see this generation of kids starting to learn about that.
Here's baseball twisting history again. Now, Jackie Robinson did not start at Vero Beach because of racism. They had to play in Cuba. So he did not play in Vero Beach.
There was some time that they.
Yeah, but he played, because when Jackie went to Vero Beach, they were going to lynch him, so they had to move the whole training camp to Cuba.
Interesting. Thank you. So we're going to move on to a question for Mr. Baker. As a minority owner of the Washington Nationals, do you believe there is a correlation between the potential increase of African-American players on the Nats and baseball ties to the local black community in D.C.? If so, what proactive measures are the Nats implementing to realize this vision?
I would say that on the field that there's been a specific aim directly toward African American players. I think with most teams, it's to get the best players possible. And if they happen to be African Americans, that's great. But I wouldn't say that there's been a concerted effort specifically for it. We just picked up James Woods, who we got in the trade for Juan Soto with the Padres. And also, we had Dusty up on the screen earlier, but his son Darren actually plays in our minor league system as well. So when we can, we do, but it's always like kind of more formal for the best players. Wonderful if they happen to be African American. That's just like an added plus to it. I would just want to give just a little bit of history though on ownership, on how when Jarvis mentioned our group, which formed in 2006, when the then Montreal Expos, who were moved to Washington in 2005, the commissioner then, Bud Selig, shopped the team to Jacksonville, Florida, Portland, Oregon, Las Vegas, Sacramento, Northern Virginia. And when the Washington, then Mayor Tony Williams, and the DC Council got involved in it, they said, yes, we very much would like to have a team move to Washington. It had been since 1974 when the then Senators moved to Texas and became the Texas Rangers. Moving baseball back to Washington, D.C., the city council, when they stepped up, said, well, we'd like significant minority participation. Commissioner Selig then latched onto it, and was integral in making sure that whatever the groups were, that there was going to be minority participation. Had that not have happened, there would be no black owners with the Washington Nationals Baseball Club. So it was 7 in the beginning. The Stan Kasten group merged with the Lerner group. We then developed a good partnership. And for all of the founding partners of the team, we have become very dear friends. And the bulk of us are still very much in the group, but embrace everybody who was originally one of the founding partners, of which Jarvis was certainly one of them. And if the commissioner hadn't made the stand that he did, we would not have ended up getting the results. But the idea was not just for the players, but to actually have African-American owners as well. So when the young people who are out in the audience right now look up on the stage, you look up on the stage and you see a black owner of a baseball team. And knowing that when I was your age, there were no black owners, period. And you never even really thought about the likelihood of that happening. That actually wasn't even one of the things you thought about. Any more so than when we were younger did we think that there'd be a black president. But with good stands, with initiative, with meaning, and some people literally just being determined to make a change, Commissioner Selig certainly did. And it made all of the difference in all of sports. There's a organization called Diverse Representation, and they now publish lists of owners for different teams. And I think when we were kids, you'd see it as baseball players in jet or ebony for black players. Now you can start to see it as well for black owners. And the goal for that is ideally not just with baseball, but with basketball, which has a pretty decent amount of minority owners as partners. But certainly the idea would be to cross over into football, which has happened. Atlanta just added a few. I know Will Packer was one of them, but Warwick Dunn was one of the original African-American owners in football. So with some determined stance of some enlightened owners, I think that a big difference can be made and can continue to be made across the whole of the sports as well. But I think it's a wonderful thing to begin to push us into the ownership ranks, which is the final kind of hallowed ground of sports as well as African-American ownership.
Absolutely. Okay, so I have a question for you, Mr. Stewart. As a Prairie View A&M University graduate, which is an HBCU, I wondered if your college experience led you to connect with baseball and inspired you to become a founding member of the Washington Nationals. If not, what did?
Well, I mean, for anyone that attended an HBCU, you know that it is a extra special experience. Let's just start there. And you don't always know your path to greatness, but you are destined for greatness because we stand on the shoulders of so many who came before us. I tell you, the short answer to your question is no. I mean, I think Paxton just raised a very good point. The concept of even owning 1% or 5% of a baseball team just never entered my mind when I was a student at Prairie View. But when the opportunity presented itself, my dad, who was from Louisiana, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and he played baseball and often took me to see the Houston Astros. So I grew up in Houston, and so we would spend a lot of time going to see the Astros. And I just remember how proud he was to see J.R. Richards, who was a great pitcher, and Joe Morgan was there at the time, and so many other different players. And I would just sort of see the excitement on his face to see them play and to see them crack one out the park, or to see a strikeout or a no-hitter, a double play, you name it. So as I got older and when I played baseball, I wasn't as good at baseball as I was football. But when I played baseball, I always just remembered wanting my dad's excitement to watch his son play baseball. Well, years later, when the opportunity presented itself to be a founding partner of the Nationals, I remember when I got the call from the Lerner family and our team was selected by MLB, and I really began to think about this historical significance of it, because I think I was 32 at the time. 32, I was very young. I was 32, 33 years of age at the time. And my father had passed and gone on to glory, but I remember my mother calling me and she says, "Man, if there's anything that I wish your dad could be right here to see you standing on stage with all these, rich white people talking about owning a Major League Baseball team, because it's just something that would have made his heart so proud." And so that really sort of gave me a real significant purpose or sort of historical significance there. But it is my experience in being part of MLB and part of the Nationals was something that I will forever remember. Not only the camaraderie, I mean, Pax and I knew one another prior to our ownership, but just knowing the business of baseball. We often know the sport, right? We know the sport, whether it's baseball or football or basketball or any other professional sport. We know the sport and how to play the game and the plays and the screens and the double play. We know all those things, right? We have not always been given the opportunity to understand the operations, the front office, how marketing works, how who buys the baseballs for the team. There's a lot of baseballs that you guys will see. There's a lot of bats. Who's responsible for buying that? In the uniforms. I mean, it's so much of the business that we have never been given the opportunity to learn and to embrace. And so that was such a rewarding experience for me to not just be in the dugout, but to really understand how the business of baseball actually work. And I think that more opportunities like that to understand how any major league sport coming online, I think is going to be, it will be really critical. And it all starts with being a player. It all starts with being a player and understanding the sport enough to be able to talk intelligently as you go on and explore the things in your life.
Let me say this. I want to say I really congratulate and so proud of what Jarvis and Paxton is doing, because I actually broke the front office barrier in Major League Baseball in 1991, becoming one of the first folks to work in the commissioner's office. And that only happened because of a statement that was made by Al Campanis when he said that blacks didn't have necessity to be in the front office or be managers on the field. That really caused a real ripple, not only in baseball, but also throughout the entire sport, because when Al Campanis made that statement in 1991, there were no black folks even covering baseball and covering basketball or even covering football. We were just players on the field. And what that did was put a mirror on not only the front offices of Major League Sports, but also of the media. And from that point, we started to gain offer people in baseball, like myself, other people come to baseball since that time. But you mentioned J.R. Richards, and that's kind of the thing that I'm talking about in a lot of ways, because before that color barrier was broken, and like I said, I broke it in '91 as an employee, a guy like J.R. Richards, who brought riches to that team, who was a national symbol of the Astros, could not get a job with the Astros, and basically was a homeless guy living on a bridge. So baseball, like I said, needs to catch up from all the players that never got a chance to be in the front office or be in the minor leagues or be coaches that we just lost.
And that's taking place too. There's actually there's a process going on right now of former players that are actually interning over the course of this summer and learning the business side of it, not just what takes place on the field. I come to this in a different situation. I'm born and raised in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. The home of Little League and the Little League World Series. Grew up on a block with a gentleman named Pat Wilson. I was never a good baseball player, but I was sort of the geeky guy. And my first paying job, I was the official scorekeeper of Newberry Little League, which is in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. And that sort of got me on my track to wanting to work into sports. Pat Wilson, who I mentioned, hired me when I was working in radio in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, worked in the Bristol office, and then moved on to the commissioner's office. The new president and CEO of Little League beginning next year is an African-American man named Patrick Wilson, who, again, gave me that opportunity to work in the sport. So for all of you, you know, there's so many different opportunities that you can use within the sport and make a career out of it. It doesn't always have to be just on the field.
Thank you. So now I have a few questions for all of the panelists that are interested in answering. The first one is, if ESPN televised MJBL's Black World Series 12U championship games like the Little League World Series, would it help re-engage African Americans with baseball?
Yes.
I think the short answer is yes. Yeah, I mean, anytime we're able to see, you know, our faces on national television, I think is a good thing. I mean, you know, ESPN has been very engaged in high school basketball, ESPNU, as we know, university. But I would love it if they would sort of, you know, cast a broader net and include you know, championship games like the one that you mentioned in Richmond, because there's a lot of great baseball in communities, in urban communities and suburban communities around the country, and those players look like me, look like us, and they are absolutely phenomenal. I don't want to wait until they get to the minor leagues or to the bigs to hear about them. I'd like to hear about them much earlier. Just like we're hearing about so many high school players, Bronny James playing at, you know, Sierra Canyon. We've been hearing about it since he was a ninth grader. You know, there are some fantastic, excuse me, young baseball players out there right now. Some of them I am looking at that just need the opportunity to elevate, particularly now as we think about in this space of NIL. And in this space of how we can really, how young people can really elevate and begin to make money much earlier than they have. I mean, baseball, like football and basketball, is one of those opportunities. But, you know, it requires exposure. It requires, you know, this little thing called social media, which we've all been able to take advantage of. But it is the way coaches and leagues and scouts are finding some of the most amazing players across all the channels, right? Is on social media, because they don't have time to zigzag across the country and find and see and watch some of the greatest players. But, you know, it starts, I think, with ESPN. It starts with other local and regional media platforms being able to sort of cast a broader net and include, you know, championship games like the one you mentioned, Little League World Series.
Well, I really think that would be a great idea, not only to expose the kids to a national audience of black kids playing baseball, but also it would be an opportunity to give the history of the teams, of the Negro Leagues, and of our players, because sports is star-driven. So we need more stars. We need more people that people can identify. If I said, hey, name 5, baseball players, that may be hard to do. But it's very easy to name 5 football players, very easy to name 5 basketball players. So we really need to have more star power in our league, and also our history. We don't talk enough about the history. The Negro League history needs to be brought up a little bit more, and talk about those great players that led to the players of today. So I would think the exposure for the live games with some of those vignettes and interviews and some little history lessons inside of that would teach everybody about the history of blacks in baseball.
Thank you. So it sounds like we need to find a way to get these games on ESPN, right? Okay. So one more question for the group. Do you believe developing a reliable funding mechanism to support HBCU baseball programs is necessary to keep the pipeline of black players in the game and expand that pipeline to get more blacks into the league? If so, how could this system be brought about?
I think that's an easy answer for yes, but I would also kind of pose the reason why behind it. And ultimately, the goal is to get more fans into the stadium. And so if there's not a lot of African Americans on the field, not a lot of African Americans in the dugout from a coaching perspective, which is one of the points that you made a little bit earlier, then ultimately African Americans won't feel as involved or buying into the sport itself, and therefore won't be purchasing tickets to come to it. So as a marketplace, we've proven certainly loyalty of brands, loyalty of supporting the things as a community that we feel very strongly about. Baseball has a unique opportunity to build toward including more African American fans into the game, and that's part of what went into the decision of including African American owners here in Washington, D.C., was to spur the idea that we are very much an integral part of the sport. So I think things like starting with social media, starting with television, starting overall, like for the mindset of the sport, is saying, like, what can we do to involve more African Americans to grow the pie, to grow the pie for viewership, to grow the pie for purchasing tickets. So for the Washington Nationals, 65% of our revenue comes from what's referred to as baseball-related income, which is actually people coming to the park. It's not television. That's not our biggest driver. It's actually people buying the tickets, coming to the game, buying food and beverages, buying merchandising, paying for parking, and being a part of the overall experience. So that's the biggest opportunity for us in the DMV, is to include more African Americans and to think broader than just be the field, but let's make everybody feel more comfortable and grow the pie itself.
Yeah, one of the, and Paxton just raised a good, one of the things that I don't have a son, I have 2 daughters, a 21 and a 19-year-old. Both of them, one played lacrosse, the other played volleyball and basketball. But, I always said that if I had a son, I would really, nothing wrong as a former football player, nothing wrong with playing football or basketball, but I always think about, and it's a conversation I've had with young HBCU players, baseball players before, whether they're down at Prairie View or Texas Southern or some of the other schools, is that the longevity of playing baseball is much longer than the other 2 main sports of basketball. One, just because of the way you play the sport, right? If you're a center fielder or first baseman, you can actually play the sport a lot longer than if you were a tight end or a quarterback, right? Just because of the nature of the sport and the contact. And let's just boil it down to sort of the economics of it. Baseball players, look at some of these contracts that the players are making. I mean, they're making some real money. I mean, real money, and they can have it for now. The structure of their contracts are a little bit different than basketball and football. That's okay, but the reality is, if you're playing in the bigs and you're doing well, you're going to be compensated for it. So I always tell young people, young players, I say, there's nothing wrong with basketball, nothing wrong with football. I say, but yeah, baseball may be a little slower. You know, it may not be as sexy as we always like to think of it, of the sports being. You may not see a bunch of rap music being played in the background and hip hop and all. I got it. I totally get it. But if for 1 minute you sort of shoot a little bit longer and think a little bit broader, think about your longevity of playing the sport and the economics and the financial benefit long term, it's there. More so than basketball and football, if you ask me. So it's one of the conversations that I think we need to really have as you talk about HBCU players. I think it's something that they should, you know, while they're fighting and to sort of be seen and be able to play, you know, be drafted to the minors and eventually to the bigs. Let's just remember how this is a real great opportunity for we can get, you know, sort of more African American players in the sport.
Well, let me say that I think that baseball can be cool if you know the game and certainly enjoy the game, but baseball has to get a little bit more cooler in order to attract these young people because baseball had a chance, and a great chance, when the kid was playing. And when the kid put his hat behind his head, all the owners went crazy. General managers went crazy. I'm talking about Ken Griffey. Now the kid owns a team. He's now part of the Seattle Mariners. So we had a chance at that time to really go after the kids. We had Ken Griffey, we had Barry Bonds, we had all these black players, and baseball decided to get rid of the black players, and they decided to not be cool when told him to turn his hat around. And that was all cool for everybody to turn their hat around, but they thought that was bad at that time. And also, we needed more fun. When a player hits a home run in baseball, you can't even celebrate. I mean, our kids are not going to go for that these days. So they want to celebrate. So, you run around the base. If you celebrate, next thing you know, the pitcher's going to throw at you next time because you're not supposed to be showing up the pitcher. So baseball needs to be a little bit more cooler. I love baseball. Baseball has been very good to me, believe me. But I can tell you we need a little bit more cooler. Last week, a few weeks ago, the Bananas sold your stadium out. How many times did the Nationals sell the stadium out? That's because it's cool. I mean, it was a fun game. And that's what the Negro Leagues brought to baseball. They brought fun. They brought speed. They brought animation to baseball. Baseball didn't like that. So basically we lost that, and we lost a lot of our audience behind that. So that's my feeling.
Thank you. And so I have one final question for everyone. MLB has offered HBCU nights at their ballparks, the Swingman Classic and the Andre Dawson Classic for HBCU players. These are all effective initiatives to reach the African American fan base. What ideas or suggestions can you provide to bring our youth back on the ball diamond and reconnect the game to our communities?
I'd like to jump in again. It's access, and that's really what baseball, softball development, our department, that's what we do. We run the RBI program. That is a free program. We mentioned the Jackie Robinson Training Complex down in Vero Beach. We probably have almost 1,000 kids that go down there and participate in tournaments and trainings. That is all free. That is in concert with USA Baseball, USA Softball. We're also working with a lot of manufacturers. Some of you may be familiar with Quickball. We're trying to make sure that there's faster ways to play the game, at least initially when you're introducing kids to, as we all know, baseball. And I'm also going to mention this for the girls too. Bat and ball sport is hard. It is very hard, and you need to play it over a period of time, but we're trying to find more ways to get more kids in front of it, and then they start doing a play ball event and using the plastic or foam bat and ball set, and then they have success, and they say, okay, what's the next step? So we want to make sure that there's transitions to make sure that everybody has a way to play the game.
Thank you. Anyone else want to comment on that?
I go back to it has to be cool.
Yes.
It's got to be cool. I'm telling you.
Well, I think PAX is pretty cool. I mean, if I were an owner, this is how you want to, you know what I mean?
Let me tell you this, if kids saw more people like Pastor and like Jarvis,
that's exactly
you'd have
right.
more kids
Yeah.
in baseball. And being a baseball person, even when I go to games and I go to the press box, I feel uncomfortable. I'm a baseball guy. I mean, I may be the only black in the press box, and I'm a baseball person, so I don't feel uncomfortable. I don't feel uncomfortable. Now, if I go to a basketball game and go to the press box, it's like a fan reunion. I go to a football game, go to the press box, it's like a fan reunion. It's a lot different. So baseball needs to look at that.
I do think that there's a way that, I mean, it's interesting you bring that up because I do think the media could probably, the way they cover baseball could be a little bit different as well. I mean, I just think I'm not certain what the solution there is, but you raised a really good point around being in the press box. And sort of the access that the media, I think a lot of one of the things that I love when Paxton was at BET, they really began to do more HBCU football, showing HBCU football games that, you would Grambling and Texas Southern, Grambling and PV, Norfolk State. And I think that there may be a vehicle or maybe an opportunity to sort of to do more of that. But I do think the way that we write about baseball, we cover it. It's summer sport may not be the most attractive, but so I do think in the way that just the way that the trailers are on during the World Series or even throughout the season for that matter, probably could be a little bit more hip. That's often beyond the ownership and beyond the clubs. It's more so focused on, whether it's NBC, CBS, or Fox who have the rights to it. So, I think there is something there to the point that you're making.
So the final point that I would add is to the young people in the audience. We got some people who are like, 30 years ago this wouldn't have happened. Today wouldn't have happened. 40 years ago wouldn't have happened. 10 years ago, who knows, but 20, 30 years ago, it wouldn't have happened. And where you have 4 black men on stage talking about from different points, from the executive end, brother here said, was it 1991 when you integrated as a black executive, which is pretty incredible. Like literally that it took that long for it to happen, but the good part is it did happen. And the good part is that ultimately there were African Americans who were given the opportunity to come into ownership. Since I've been in baseball, I expanded it to World Team Tennis, to rugby, to women's soccer twice, to a basketball team in South Africa, to a basketball team in Brisbane, Australia. And the opportunities continued to grow for me once I got in the door. And every door I've been in, I've made a point of making sure that other African Americans and women had the opportunity to come in along with me. So I'd like to say that there are some things that have really changed for the better. And it's incumbent upon each of us as adults to continue to make sure the doors remain open and that others along with ourselves have the opportunity to come into it. And that's part of Bill Forrester. Where's he at? Why don't you stand up, sir? This is a gentleman who put it together for everybody to come here today, just to let you know, Bill Forrester right there. Thank you, sir, for the opportunity behind this, for bringing us all together today. I also want to thank Congresswoman McClellan. For bringing us together as well, for giving us this opportunity to be in this room today. So as a little bit younger brother with my elders to the right, we salute you, we thank you, we respect you, we appreciate the doors that you actually helped open. Jarvis and I wouldn't be up on this stage as partners in a sports group had you not have made the sacrifices and also been successful in the work that you did. We wouldn't be sitting here today, so we acknowledge it. And I'd like to give them a round of applause as well, our big brothers and fathers. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. I don't even need to close us out. That was a great way to close us out. But that concludes our questioning from the panelists. So I want to thank everyone for their thoughtful commentary. Can we give everyone a round of applause that's up here? And now we have a little time for questions from the audience. Are there any questions from any of the young people? Okay, in the back.
RBI programs like this. Okay, I'll start over. Mr. James is talking about the travel ball baseball, and my question is to Mr. Ricks about Mr. John Young, when started the RBI baseball program. It was more of a grassroots program. These young men from here, from all over the state of Connecticut, North Carolina, Virginia, these are grassroots kids. They're not being seen or heard of through Major League Baseball. Every time when we try to get someone to come down, it's no, yes. And we need some more support from Major League Baseball into the Richmond, Virginia area for this program that Mr. Foster is running.
Mike's back on. There's about 232 RBI leagues across the country. Only about 10 to 15% of that enter into the tournament. RBI is a free program. You don't have to pay Major League Baseball to have your youth baseball or softball program associated with it. Obviously, there is a competitive component to it, and that has grown, and that competition has really grown amongst the major league clubs and most recently minor league clubs. So some of you may be familiar with the Chicago teams, both the Cubs and the White Sox. Just this past weekend, Detroit is back in. So the club-run programs, obviously, there's a lot of resources. They're putting out quality kids that are getting into college. Absolutely, we would like to see more of that happen in the grassroots, or as we respectively call them, the mom and pop leagues, and we do work to provide more opportunities for them as it relates to equipment. One of the things that we want to work on moving forward is access to fields. Those of you that play travel ball, as you know, travel teams will now go to municipalities and park and recreation departments, and they buy out the fields for, most of the summer, so they control that. So those are the types of things, to your point about those independent leagues, how can we make sure that they have more access to get on the fields? That's the biggest challenge for them. Club-run programs are actually doing really well because the clubs are just as competitive off the field as they are at the major league level also. So you're absolutely right. We're aware of that. We continue to work on that. The other challenge, too, the state of the country right now, there's some things that everybody has to do. Safe sport, background checks. That can be a deterrent in a lot of, as we, again, respectively call them mom and pop leagues. So we know that we need to provide more resources to them so that they can just play regular season. They may not necessarily want to enter tournament, but they want to be under the RBI umbrella. So we continue to work on that.
How you doing, sir? Junior Preston, Richmond, Virginia. First, I want to say thank you, and thank you to Coach Anthony, Mr. Foster, Coach Crump, and Coach Nutoff. I'm 46. I came up under MJBL when I was 10 years old. My father, we started our own recreation and parks in the hood that I was raised in. My daddy started baseball for a lot of kids, black kids that didn't have any fathers or have mothers. It was big for the community. I was in it when RBI started, Revival Baseball in the inner cities. That thing was big, so I want to say thank you for that, man, because I never thought that I'd be able to play on Major League's stadiums. You know what I mean? Played in the Richmond Bridge Diamond plenty of times, played in Cleveland Indian Stadium twice, and I played in St. Louis Stadium when they had the old field. So that was a blessing for me, and a lot of kids was able to travel, get on airplanes, and go places that they never thought they to this day, they still talk about that, you know what I mean? And I'm back now and getting into the youth, and hopefully I can share my story about what my father did, what Mr. Foster did, and everybody that came up under when we was in Richmond, the coaches, and the kids today, that's the adults now, they still want to talk about it. They still talk about those things, man. So I just want to say thank you, all you guys that's on the stage, and I appreciate you, and I pray that hopefully that we could get more exposure, and ESPN will start showing some games, man, so the kids can see that black kids, or any kid, can see, you know what I mean, what baseball can do, how the doors can open up for them. Even though they don't make it to major leagues, it can open up doors, because it definitely did for me. It helped me get to college. And I'm sharing my story because I went to college and took it for granted. So I'm trying to show kids don't take those things for granted, because there's so many people that made sacrifices that I didn't realize they made sacrifices. But I realized that when I read Mr. Foster's book, there was so many people that were making sacrifices for me when I was out here having fun. So today, I'm here today to make those same sacrifices that them guys made. So I thank you guys for all y'all sacrifices. All right. Appreciate it.
How's it going, guys? Once again, thank you for coming out here and speaking to us. It's really been a pleasure just hearing you guys speak, hearing your different stories, and it's just something I won't take for granted at all. But my main question is, what are some strategies or methods would you implement to help raise awareness to the lack of funding given to a lot of black baseball programs? From my personal experience, I founded and started the Howard Baseball Club 2 years ago. And from what I ran into was that our biggest issue and problem was basically just funding, lack of money in terms of getting field time, getting space to practice, and just raising awareness about what we're doing. Because I feel like both black engagement in inner city communities as well as sufficient funding would be somewhat of a stepping stone for us to make baseball prevalent in the African American community again. So.
From the commissioner's office, separate from RBI, one of the other big initiatives is Play Ball. Simply what it is at its core, it's activations in communities all across the country, as I mentioned earlier, about the Franklin foam bat and ball sets where, you know, all the clubs, our office will go do these events. But the United States Conference of Mayors jumped on board with that also. And as a result of working with USCOM, we've seen more movement in regards to cities making sure that there's equitable distribution of who gets to play on the fields. As I mentioned earlier, I wish we could get rid of it to a degree. Travel ball is here to stay, but it does seem like municipalities and cities are understanding, hey, it's great to get that money and get it paid for, but they know that they have a responsibility that the kids and the families in their community should get first crack at opportunities to get on those fields. And that's probably your biggest challenge right now is just, can you get your kids on the field?
Yeah, so, go ahead.
I would definitely look into Nike also, because Nike is a big sponsor of RBI. So basically, they would be, could be some help with that also. And also Park and Rec. Park and Rec are seeking RFPs to get programs. If you create a program that gets kids off the street and gets kids into doing something, they will fund it. And certainly in the climate we're in now, with our kids, going crazy, in the streets. So basically, this would be a great opportunity to put together RFP to Park and Rec, and also to someone like Nike.
Yeah. I also want to give a shout out to Mr. Baker. So we actually had a majority of our games at the Nationals Youth Academy. And, there is a field kind of close to Howard's campus, Willie Murray. Availability was real tight. It was hard, but Mr. Sussman was able to get us on. So, I really appreciate what you've done for the community, and in particular with the Nats Academy. That's a real good thing.
No, I was just going to say one of the other things. Listen, we've always had we meaning black people when it comes to sports or the things that really focus on our kids. Funding is always an issue, and it just requires us to be more creative. I mean, we just figure it out. We just figured out. One of the things I would say is you're looking for money for your squad is to just go and talk to some of the local businesses, right? I think you'd be shocked if you can get $250 here, $500 there, $1,000 here, and just say, listen, here's an opportunity for you to come in and say in your window of your barbershop, window of your chicken shack, the window to say proud supporter of the team. And so as people are coming by, and then tell people, hey, go by and support, Mr. Henry's barbershop. He gave us $500 for new uniforms or new whatever your budgetary restraints are. So you got to be creative there, brother. I mean, as you're looking at Parks and Recs, that is definitely should be a first line of conversation because that's taxpayer money. You pay your taxes, I pay my taxes. So it should be going back to the communities that definitely need it. So start with Park and Rec. But if you don't have relationships with Nike or Under Armour or some of the other folks, I mean, just go grassroots on them. 1,000 here, 500 there. Next thing you know, you can start creating some buzz in the community, and you can raise some money. And then it makes it even easier when you call Paxson and the Nats to say, listen, we've got major community support, And that makes it even easier for PACs to go and weigh in even more so with the Nats for potential funding, potential help. So you have to build it from a groundswell perspective, and I guarantee you you'll see a movement and change.
Peace, y'all. My name is Alafia Bailey. I'm a senior at Howard University. I study Africana Studies, a major in African Studies from Houston, Texas. So I first want to give thanks to you guys and the elders in the community, and also the brothers up there as well. I did RBI in Houston, a beautiful experience. You know what I mean? Just thankful for that. So just some like ideas I want to throw out there, just from a younger perspective, a brother that goes to HBCU. Like this brother said right here, all the way to my left. Baseball has to be cool. You know what I mean? And what made me go to HBCU was because it was cool to be black and smart. At HBCU, it was cool to do, fun activities, being an organization, but also get like 4.0 GPA as a black man, right? So we had to make like the sport cool. So I'm just thinking about like initiatives like that HBCU, I mean, that the MLB is presenting to HBCUs, and like what like ideas are you guys like strategizing behind, like for funding for HBCUs, because HBCUs need money for baseball, you know what I mean? Because you got, all these big programs for football and basketball, but if it look cool for black boys to play baseball at HBCUs, black boys will like stay in the community, you know what I mean, and actually be at HBCUs as well. I know a cool thing also would be like, yes, there are RBI communities and RBI teams in certain like states and cities, but what if y'all connect with the HBCUs in those communities and like actually brought RBI players to HBCUs would be a cool thing as well. Because like most kids who play RBI with me just play RBI till 12th grade and was done at that, you know what I mean? So I think it would be cool for y'all connect with HBCUs in the communities with RBIs, you know what I mean? So my main question is like, what is MLB doing to fund, HBCUs for baseball? Because that's like that's like the Negro League right now. HBCUs are the like Negro League, you know what I'm saying? So like what are we doing, and what is MLB doing to fund HBCUs is my main thing.
Well, obviously, you have the Swingman Classic with Junior being involved in it. And obviously, you being in Houston, you know that there's a lot of relationships there. Quite honestly, I think all of us are waiting to see what the NCAA does moving forward. There's a lot of discussions. Is that going to exist as we currently know it? Football plays a big role in that, all of the money that's coming there. So to your point, I think right now, I don't want to speak out of turn. There's hires up at our place that, are talking about this too, but they want to see what happens with the NCAA. As we all know, it's changing significantly, and, with NILs and players and things like that. So I think that there's probably just a little bit of hesitation right now until everyone sees how this landscape, changes as we move forward, because it's not operating the way that it did historically currently.
In terms of getting baseball back into our community, certainly at the HBCU level, we're going to have to do that really on our own, because that is not going to be baseball's call. Just like when Steph Curry was on campus and one of our student athletes on campus challenged him to a golf match, next thing you know, we have a golf team. So what we need to do is find another Steph Curry for baseball, because there are a lot of players out there that would support baseball. Write them a letter, go visit them. Write the players union, because all the baseball players, certain African American players, they know exactly where we're coming from in terms of what our needs are, and they probably want to help out, but they haven't been asked. So if they don't ask, then they can't help us. So
and again,
start asking some folks.
And we're talking about baseball. To your point, women's baseball, professional softball, anyone who is playing bat and ball sport are also trying to create a career out of that, to create a league. This is a really, really good time for bat and ball sport, but it isn't just us. It's softball, it's girls baseball also. And I shouldn't say girls, I should say women's baseball, because they want to have a women's baseball league out there also.
Thank you.
So I think we have time for maybe one more really quick question.
So while we're waiting for that question, let me just say that I want to give hands out and certainly a compliment to the commissioner, mainly because in the last couple of months, baseball has just been off the chain with things it's been doing. First, they had the East-West Classic game up in Cooperstown with the Aussies team versus Ken's team, which was very successful. Unfortunately, they didn't tell anybody about it, but it was very successful. I had to get on them about that because nobody in the black press even knew about it. The next thing was the stats inclusion, which is an incredible move. In my estimation, baseball says that its proudest day was April 15, 1947. I think the second proudest day was the day when they put the stats in, from my personal view. And the third thing was the game in Rickwood. Bringing the game down to Rickwood was incredible. I wish they would have done it sooner so Willie could have been there. So many great players came out of Alabama. President Hank came out of Alabama. A lot of players came out of there. So in the last few months, I would say baseball has really turned it on with the R&D for youth sports in the black community. So congratulations.
Congratulations. Last question right here, sir.
So, as a big fan of baseball history, I was really excited to see that they included Negro League stats in the official MLB statistics record. What else do you think we can do to tell the stories of these giants of the game and teach a new generation about Josh Gibson and Jackie Robinson, all the other greats of the Negro Leagues?
Man, I'm so glad you asked that question because I think baseball should teach the history of Negro Leagues to the RBI players so they would know the history of the league. And one of the ideas that I just sent up to the commissioner just a couple of weeks ago, and I told Bill about it, was just have a RBI barnstorming session where we take those kids from Vero Beach to the RBI teams in Detroit, to Kansas City, Chicago, New York, Washington, D.C., back to Atlanta, and play RBI games inside the stadium, with Negro League uniforms, do an old-fashioned barnstorming session. Now, this is not new because I sent that proposal up to the commissioner. So I think that would be a great thing. And they can definitely put that on television, on the Baseball Network and ESPN, for sure. So that would be one of the ideas, and thanks for that question.
Thank you. Okay, so let's give another round of a hand for all of our panelists up here. And to our panelists, if any of the young people want to further engage with you or any of the programs you mentioned, how can they go about doing that? If any of the young people want to further engage with you or any of the programs that you mentioned, how can they go about doing that?
Oh, yes, you can reach me at Howard University. You can reach me in the Sports Management Department at Howard University. Just go on our website and look for Ricky Clemens in the Sports Management Department.
And I am David.James@MLB, as in Major League Baseball.com.
Well, I'm old school. You can just go to LinkedIn, the Jarvis C. Stewart. That's right. Go to LinkedIn, the Jarvis C. Stewart, and I'm on there. I think Pax, I know Pax is there.
Paxton Baker on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
But I want to, just one last thing of, once again, thank you, Bill Forrester. Thank you for the organizers of the event. It's been a joy to be a part of it. It's good to see the young people here in the audience today. I want to encourage you that you can change the world. You often hear great names like Dr. King, Harry Belafonte, Jackie Robinson, Dusty Baker, Hank Aaron. They all started at the same age that you did, and at one point got determined to make a difference in their own life and ended up making a difference for the whole of the country and the world. So I want to encourage each of you to find that spirit within yourself.
Thank you. And so before we wrap up, we have two more things. We want to now introduce our HBCU Player of the Year. Our HBCU Player of the Year is a young man out of Richmond, Virginia, who has played with MJBL and inspires African-American youth to play the game. The power-hitting phenom out of Norfolk State University, Justin Jurnett, was selected as the HBCU Player of the Year. The Black College Nines present this award with input from professional scouts and HBCU coaches, sports information directors, other athletic department personnel, as well as various Black college baseball media representatives. I'll now ask Justin and William Forrester to come up to receive this award.
It gives me great pleasure to present this award, the most valuable player in HBCU baseball for the 2024 season goes to Justin Jernett. And just like Naisha said, it came from Black College Nines, and with scouts, athletic departments from the various HBCUs, out of all the HBCUs across the country, this young man has been awarded the top player. And I had the privilege of watching him play since he was a freshman in high school. My son actually played on the team along with him, and I was at all of his games, and I was like, where's this kid get this kind of power from? He was hitting it out the park as a freshman, where everybody it was jaw-dropping home run shots. So it wasn't surprising to me that he was selected as the top player in HBCU baseball. And we're talking about how do we get young black kids involved in the game again? It's individuals like this, Justin Jernett. Justin, here's your plaque. Congratulations. And we want you to say a few words.
I'm from Richmond, Virginia. This is an honor, big honor. I was really shocked when I seen this. I was really excited. I think this award, it gives people motivation to just keep on pushing. I feel like younger kids from my community, seeing them win this award, and it just pushes them even harder. They want to train harder. They want to try to get to this position. They want to go to college. They want to play baseball. So I just really appreciate this, and thank you.
Okay, and finally, we're going to have a check presentation from Evan Smith from Equal Shot for All. Evan, if you could come up to the stage if you're here. Okay, and also Corey Nicholson, please, if you could come to the stage.
Yeah, I'll say a few words. Good afternoon. My name is Evan Smith. I'm a rising freshman at North Carolina A&T, where I'll be pursuing a degree in business economics. Last summer, I had the opportunity to play with the MJBL in the Bahamas. Unfortunately, I was injured during my time there, and I wasn't able to contribute on the field. About a year ago, I started raising money to help aspiring baseball players so I could still contribute to the game even if I'm not on the field. I'm looking to grow Equal Shot for All into a nonprofit, and this is just the first step of that process. I'd like to give a special thank you to my family, coaches, donors, and everyone who has supported me through this journey. Thank you.
So, on behalf of the MJBL, I'd like to thank you for the initiative and for doing this and for your generosity. And we are thankful that the league has inspired young people like you and hopefully other folks that are here with us. A couple of years ago, when there was the hurricane in the Bahamas, the boys in the MJBL in Richmond got together and did a drive to get food and supplies for the folks in the Bahamas. So we're proud, we're thankful, we're proud that we have helped inspire you. We thank you very much for this.
And that concludes our session. Thank you, everyone, for attending.